Welcome to Bow Ties, are sometimes called myself, Ashley, and Ed. Good evening, Ed.
Good evening, Ash. How's things this evening?
Very good. It's raining, but never mind.
It's raining. Yeah, raining here as well. Tonight we're going to be talking about Carry On Screaming.
Could I see the master of the house?
He's been dead 15 years now. But if you'll come in, I'll ask him if he can see you.
Sergeant, yes, you! It's him! You great steaming nit! What are you trying to do? Ride me to death? Carry on screaming!
It's Carry On Screaming.
Not now!
There is something in those bushes.
Carry On Screaming, with laughter, of course, as Peter Rogers and Gerald Thomas invite you to join the Carry On crowd on a riotous ride through the realms of hilarious horror. Harry H. Corbett.
All right, Mr. Potter. All we want to know is, where is it?
Well, Lummy, it's your police station. You ought to know where it is.
Take your boots off. We're investigating a barefoot robbery. Are you sure those are your feet?
Of course they're mine. Who do you think they are?
Sarge, only 5 toes.
Well, how many am I supposed to have?
6! Where's the other one, eh? What have you done with it?
Jim Dale.
Do you happen to know what Doris was wearing?
A dark green jacket and a long green skirt.
Did you get that down?
Oh, no, as I said, I've only known her a year.
Kenneth Williams as Dr. Watt, who's been dead for 15 years, but just won't take it lying down.
That policeman's here again.
What's he after?
The same as he was after last night, I imagine.
Fenella Fielding, who causes the copper to come a cropper.
Yes, but I don't think you're very experienced in the ways of love.
If you want to know the way, ask a policeman.
Charles Hawtrey as Dan, the
Don't look. Is he drowned?
Joan Sims.
Citizen, you have been drinking. So, this is the step on the final path, is it? Well, you can't say my mother didn't warn me. Get out!
Angela Douglas, innocent victim of a crazy collection of crooks. And 2 of the most lovable monsters ever seen on the cinema screen.
I do wish Junior would learn to use the door.
It's Carry On Screaming.
Now, Ed, you've had a bit more time on your side this week. You lucky boy. So I know you've watched it. I've watched a little bit, but I am going to go back to slightly my older format of reading out some facts in a moment. So I think what I'll ask to do is I'll hand over to you to give your little summary of it. I'm going to read some facts, and then we'll wrap it up. So Ed, you watched it this week. We've watched this before. It's one of our favourite films, isn't it, in terms of the Carry On films. Harry H. Corbett in there, and Fenella Fielding, Kenneth Williams as usual. It's one of the classic ones. I think we're going to have to call this episode. What did we say?
Frrrying Tonight.
So when you watched it this week, what stood out to you?
Well, funny you're saying, it's one of my favourites. I watched it again and I didn't really much. I think in terms of production values and look, it's probably one of the best looking Carry On films. But in terms of being funny, it didn't make me laugh all that much. I think it's one of the Carry On films where they're more concerned about getting the look and the feel right, getting the homages to the different types of horror films right, which they do. You've got a feeling of, you've got a bit of Jack the Ripper in there, which wasn't a horror film, it was real, but if you know what I mean. You've got a bit of House of Wax, you've got Frankenstein, you've got Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, you've got the Addams Family. So they're all sort of thrown in there, and the homages and the visual gags on those work brilliantly. Like you've got Bernard Bresslaw as the Socket, who's just like Lurch in the Addams Family. You've got Fenella Fielding as Valeria, who's like Carolyn Jones in the Addams Family. You've got Oddbod, who is like Frankenstein's monster. You've got at one point you've got Jim Dale taking the potion. At one point you've got R.H. Corbett taking the potion, and that's like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So I think all the bits are there, or all the homages, the films are there, and as a sort of spoof horror film, it's not bad, but it doesn't feel like a carry-on film. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the fact that Sid James isn't in it, but Sid James wasn't in all of them. But it doesn't. I don't know. It sticks out like a sore thumb. Another one that feels like this for me is Carry On at the Khyber, which everyone seems to love, and it doesn't quite work for me as a carry-on film. But this is the same thing as a sort of film of that period. A nice, light-hearted. Let's have a little laugh at the horror films that we made. That's great, but it seems to have stuck Carry On in front of it, and made it part of the Carry On canon. And yeah, as a carry-on film, I don't know. It doesn't quite work. Which is really, really odd. I used to love it. I used to absolutely love it when I was younger.
But I suppose, given the themes, it's not really your usual carry-on film, though, is it? Really? I mean, most of the carry-on films are set in. Well, I suppose Carry On Screaming is set, obviously, in the real world, just happens to have stumbled upon some strange place. But the themes are sort of out of this world, whereas all the other carry-on films are kind of, generally speaking, all farcical, but potentially could happen. Whereas you're thinking, you're not going to have a vampire and a Frankenstein character. So in that sense, it is an odd job film. It's an odd film in that sense because it doesn't fit the criteria of most of the others.
I think you've hit the nail right on that, completely on the head. You said it a lot better. You said it in one sentence better than I could in half an hour. You've hit the nail on the head completely.
It's a good little skit of stuff and a good film, but it's not your typical Carry On. Like you say, they sort of put the Carry On name in the front at the front of it just to make it part of that canon. So in that sense, it doesn't work. Probably Sid James in there doesn't help either. Maybe that would have been something. Sid James couldn't do it. He was doing some play or something, I think. He wasn't that he was ill, right? I think he had some of the work commitments. So Harry H. Corbett did it and became the highest paid carry-on actor. £12,000 he got for doing that. I think that's in today's money because it can't be in the old days. I did a calculation. If it was 12,000 in old money, that would have been £110,000 he got for doing it. I'm sure the Carry On producers wouldn't have had £110,000 back then to be able to give him.
Oh, they were notorious cheapskates, weren't they?
Yeah, so I think it has to be that he got paid £12,000 by today's money, which actually, considering probably filmed it in probably a couple of weeks or something like that, he doesn't have massive amounts of touch screen time. It's not bad pay, really, I suppose. I mean, it's not like the millions that people get for the big motion pictures now, but for a little film, all right, yeah. So should we do some facts, Ed? Because there's actually, I mean, we've even got a Doctor Who in here, haven't we? We've got John Pertwee.
We have got John Pertwee, isn't it?
Right. Give us some trivia, Ed. Give us some trivia.
Okay, so in a break from tradition, the trivia now comes from Ed. So Fenella Fielding wore the same, now iconic red dress for the entire 5 weeks of filming. There were no doubles or replacements.
Well, there you go, Fenella.
Yeah. Production took over 5 weeks, and the budget was a massive £179,000. And most of that was Harry H. Corbett's wages. So
yeah, well, it really was, though, wasn't it? Actually, I suppose what they were trying to do was, in the absence of, spice it up a little bit in the absence of Sid James.
Harry H. Corbett replaced Sid James. James was committed to appearing as one of the robbers in the pantomime Babes in the Wood at the London Palladium, which ran until June 1966, and Corbett was drafted to replace him. Despite this, his character's name, Sidney Bung, was kept. Sid James' character on TV and film were often also called Sid. Which true. He tends to be Sid, doesn't he?
Apparently, another bit of trivia about Sid James as well is that he used to get given bottles of whiskey by a famous whiskey manufacturer, and apparently,
Johnny Walker.
Yeah, if you watch his films, that you'll tend to find a Johnny Walker bottle of whiskey is somewhere in the background. A little bit of product placement before its time.
Carry On Again, Doctor, when he's playing the wonderful character of Gladstone Screwer. He opens his cupboard on the island that they're sent to, and it's full of Johnny Walker Red Label. The only Carry On movie to make it to Time Out's top 100 comedy films of all time is Carry On Screaming. So it shows what we know about, well, what I know about funny films. It was ranked 99.
But potentially it could be seen. Yeah, depends how you're measuring it. I mean, I don't think it's a funny out loud, but it could be seen as a funny film. It depends what your expectation is. It just goes back to what we were saying. It's not your standard format for Carry On, though. That's all.
And this is what we were saying earlier on about how notoriously tight-fisted the producers were. Jewellery was bought from London for Fenella Fielding to match her red dress, but Fenella Fielding had to buy her own ring for the role, which cost £9 in their money of the time.
Well, mind you, £9. How much would £9 have been then? Well, actually,
about 90, 100.
Yeah, probably about right. Yeah.
And again, shows what I know about films. This was one of the most popular films of 1966 and one of the highest grossing films of the Carry On series.
Yeah, but again, that could just be the time, couldn't it? It could just be when people were going to the cinema. 66.
Yeah, I mentioned it before. This me use my little bit of film knowledge here. The movie had a similar storyline to the classic Vincent Price 3D horror film House of Wax, where women were abducted then encased in wax. Have you seen it?
No, I haven't seen it, but it's on Prime, I think. So I might actually watch that. Oh, what is it on Prime or is it on Netflix? I actually have seen that in the last week advertised somewhere, and I wasn't going to give it the time of day, but I might even now just watch it just for that to see the similarities.
And another little Doctor Who connection. Later on, Angela Douglas played the Brigadier's wife in Battlefield.
That is true. That is true.
Yeah. Also, that comes back to my Doctor Who connections. Let's have a look again. A couple of bits of incidental music they use. They use one that sounded a little bit like Z Cars, and they sounded one that sounded a little bit like the Steptoe theme as well in it. Really, and the where Fenella Fielding does that "Do you mind if I smoke" joke, stolen from the Addams Family. Morticia Addams did it in the Addams Family.
Oh, there we go.
So again, wearing its influences on its sleeve, this film. But yeah, so that's my factoids. And we haven't really alluded much to it, but isn't Kenneth Williams brilliant as Dr. Watt?
Yes,
he's absolutely. He's actually doing a bit of acting rather than playing the Kenny character.
I think the thing with Kenneth Williams was, and he always wanted, and I think he did fancy himself as quite an actor, really, wasn't he? And I think he could have been. He just got caught in doing what he was doing.
But in this one, he's not just the "now stop messing about." He's not that character. He's actually been given a character to play, so he's sort of being allowed to act in this one. Not often you see Kenneth Williams as the villain either.
No, that's true, actually. And it's very rare, really. Just trying to think when else was he the villain? Carry On at the Khyber, maybe.
Yeah.
But quite rare, though, generally speaking. He's usually sort of either the idiot or the idiot who's in charge, who is ill-informed, and by the time at the end of the film, he's come round, like he thinks he's in charge and a bit pompous, and then by the end of the film, he's joined the gang, so to speak. In terms of the critique, I mean, I think you've got it spot on there, really, to be fair. You've also done some facts. You are essentially 75% of Bow Ties Score this week. That's pretty good. And I will just carry on editing. No, carry on editing.
Carry on editing.
Pardon the pun. At marks out of 10, Ed. Let's have a look. What did IMDb give it? Let's have a look. Before we give our marks, what did IMDb?
Yeah.
No, let's give our marks because then we will be influenced by it, and then we'll look at what IMDb says.
Okay. So I'm going to mark it in two. I'm going to mark it in two different ways. As a film, I'd mark it probably 6.5 out of 10. As a Carry On, I'd mark it 4 out of 10.
Ooh, that's harsh. But it's probably right, actually, think about it upon reflection.
It's not a bad film. It's an entertaining way to spend an hour and a half. It just doesn't feel like a Carry On.
I can take that. I think that's fair. Okay. So I would probably give it 6 on both levels.
Okay.
So well, maybe 5 on the Carry On level because it's not quite the normal one. What does IMDb? What does the IMDb rate as the general public?
Well, you're not far off actually. IMDb rates it 6.7 out of 10.
Okay, well,
so we're not that far off.
The general public agree with us. There we go. There we go.
And on that bombshell, I've been Ed.
I've been Ash.
Frrrying Tonight.
Carry on screaming. Carry on screaming. 'Cause when you're screaming, I know that you're dreaming of me. The clock's striking midnight, the moon's riding high, a bat flutters by. Everybody's getting goose pimples, cold icy fingers that run up your spine. Whoa, 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 come closer, come closer. Those fingers that you're feeling on mine. So carry on screaming, 'cause when you're screaming, I know that you're dreaming of me. Each single heartbeat's a sickening thud, curdles the blood. Oh, baby, ain't it romantic? I've locked the door and I've swallowed the key. Whoa, 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 come closer, 'cause you bring out the monster in me. So carry on screaming, 'cause when you're screaming, I know that you're dreaming of me.